Hello guys, my name is Behroz and by profession I'm a finance executive. Welcome to my channel where I talk about how you can go about achieving financial and career success. Now in today's video, I will talk a special topic which is kind of a question that everyone has at a certain point in time in their life, which is when they are buying a car, whether they should buy the car on cash, on financing, or on lease. Now before going in the video, I have to ask for you. One, press the like button and second, subscribe to the channel. Both of these go a long way in helping me improve the quality of the content and the quantity of the content that I produce on this channel. Again, if you're interested in career and personal finance success, this channel is for you. Now with regards to the video, what I will cover is I will explain what are the three options, what do they mean, cash, finance and lease, how do they compare amongst each other, and I will use some mathematical calculations as well in order for you to understand what is the best return for your investment, whether it's cash, finance or lease. And I will also be sharing towards the end some non-monetary benefits of the three options. So make sure you stay tuned till the end of this video. Now let's start with the easy option, which is cash. In cash option, you pay cash for purchasing a car. Let's say the car costs $30,000. So you pay cash $30,000 and you own the car. You own the car fully. You don't have to pay any monthly payments. There are no interest. There are no rental payments for the car at all. You are responsible for the car's maintenance, and till the time you own the car, it is your liability, your responsibility completely. Talking about financing. In financing is just like you purchasing the car, but you don't pay $30,000. Rather, you pay a portion of it and the rest you pay in monthly installments. Since you are paying on monthly installments, there is also an interest charge on it as well. So essentially, if the car costs $30,000 on financing, you will end up paying towards the end of the term more than $30,000 depending on what the interest rate is. And by the end of the term, you completely own the car. Well, you also own the car while you are kind of paying the installments. However, it's kind of co-owned, like it is owned by the bank or the institute which has lended the money to you, and eventually the ownership is being transferred to you towards the end of the financing term. While with regards to lease, what you do is you don't own the car. It is like as if you have rented the car. So you take the car from the dealership and you pay monthly rent to the dealership, and towards the end of the term, you return the car back. You don't end up owning the car like you would own the car in financing. So in cash, you own the car immediately on day one. In financing, you own the car once the term of the financing has been completed. But in lease, once the term has been completed, you just give the car back. You never own the car altogether. Now let's talk numbers. So what I will do here is I will take you through a Toyota website where they have three options, which is when you buy the car on cash, what are the numbers? When you buy the car on financing, what are the numbers? And when you buy the car on lease, what are the numbers? And I will use those numbers, exact example or exact numbers, and compare which is a better return for you. So let's check that out. The example here is for RAV4 Toyota that is selling at dealer for 31824 retail price. The dealer shares terms for finance and lease on their website that I will use to illustrate as to how should you compare between the three. Now the way I will explain will help you understand how to evaluate the three options, because the numbers that I have might be different from the numbers that you will get from your dealer, because you might be going to a different dealer buying a different car. But as long as you understand the approach and the thinking behind it, you can apply the same approach to the numbers that you get from your dealer and then use it to evaluate whether it is a good buy for you through cash, through financing or through leasing. Now here with regards to lease, I'm going with 36-month option, which is one of the most common lease option available in the market. I'm using 12,000 miles as against the three option I have here, which is 10,000, 15,000 miles, which is just to stay in the middle of the pack. And I will be using $4,000 as a down payment, which is something that I will also keep constant in financing. So it's an apples to apples comparison. And here when we click on it, the without tax payment is $386. I'm making a without tax comparison just to make it easy. So when I select financing, in financing again I will go for 36 months as well, so it's apples to apples comparison. This is the 36 months option. When I click on this one, it is at 4.99% rate, and without tax the payment is $855. So again, both are apples to apples to make a without tax comparison between finance and lease cost. So now since we have all these three options, let me start with the easiest comparison, which is between cash and financing. So financing here is at 4.99% APR, which is the interest rate that you pay on the money that you have not paid on the car or borrowed, or the money that is outstanding on the car. And the other option is cash. Here, what you will need to do is assess what is the opportunity cost. Now, what does opportunity cost mean? Opportunity cost means that if you are buying your car on cash, so instead of buying your car on cash, what if you invest that cash somewhere else how much money can you make on it. If that money that you make on it is more than the cost of financing the car, then you're better off investing that money elsewhere and buying the car on financing. Which means if the investment that you will do will give you a return which is more than 4.99%, that means you can make more money on that cash and hence can even pay for the cost of the borrowing. So instead of paying cash for the car, you rather use that cash and invest it somewhere else where you can get more money and hence use that extra money that you are making to pay for the interest that will be charged to you on that particular car. However, if the investment return that you're getting elsewhere is lower than 4.99%, then you're better off paying cash for the car because that is the best return on your money. Now here the benchmark that I use is S&P 500. S&P 500 historically in past 20 to 30 years has been delivering somewhere around 8 to 12% return, which is significantly higher than the 5% that this car dealership is offering, which means I can invest my cash in S&P 500, earn around 10% return on it, and then use portion of that return to pay for the interest that is being charged to me on this particular car. So the opportunity cost of buying the car on cash is very high. So I'd rather buy the car on finance and not on cash. Now here there is one catch, which is if the investment rate that I'm getting by investing my money outside is either closer or slightly higher than the cost of borrowing, then I would still prefer paying cash for the car because there's a risk when I invest outside. However, 5% is a sure shot cost. What I mean closer is, let's say outside when I invest my money, I can get 6 or 7% return, which is only 1 or 2% higher than the cost of borrowing. However, that return comes with risk as well. There might be some period where the return is, let's say 10%, and there might be some periods where the return is only 2%. It's just that the return is averaging out to be 6 and 7%. Hence, I would not go and take that risk because the risk is high, but the return or the differential return is very low. If the differential return is more than 2 to 3%, which is, let's say if it's above 7%, then yes, I'm keen on investing that cash outside and arbitraging that return and hence not paying cash for the car. But if the return is very close, let's say the cost is 5% and the return I get outside in the market is around 6 to 7% or below, then I'm rather better off paying the cash for the car because that way it is less risky. This is a sure shot return on my investment, which is I get the 5% as against unsure return of 6 to 7%. However, for me, the case is simple because my benchmark return is around 10% coming from S&P, which is twice the cost of borrowing. Yes, it is risky, but the return is twice as high. Hence, I would choose that return and go for financing instead of paying for cash. Now, for this particular example, since we've decided that finance is better than cash and we know the approach and the thinking methodology behind it, now let's compare finance versus lease. Now, in case of lease, the math is very simple. That is, over a 3-year period, I will be paying straight $386 per month, which in total adds up to $13,896. Plus you add $4,000 which you paid as down payment. So the total ends up being $17,896. And after the end of the lease, you just return the car. So it's like you just paid the rental for the car. So you paid $4,000 as down payment and then you paid monthly $386 as rental for the car. And at the end of 3 years, you just return the car and don't pay any further for the car at all and don't own the car at all. Now, in case of financing, you pay the total value of the car in 3 years because eventually you will own the car. So you will have to pay the total value of the car, but over the 3 years because we've used 3 years for an apples to apples comparison, which is $31,824 as part of your monthly payments. Plus you also pay on monthly basis as part of your monthly payments the cost of interest, which on 3-year terms is 4.99% for the financed amount of $27,824. Why the financed amount is $27,824 is because you already paid $4,000 in cash. So the money that you're borrowing is $27,824. So you only pay 4.99% on that money. This interest will cost you over the period of 3 years $2,134. So the total cost incurred by you at the end of 3 years is $33,958, which is $31,824 for the price of the car that you pay over 3 years, including the $4,000 paid as down, and then interest payments of $2,134. So they total to $33,958. So by the end of 3 years, the car has costed you $33,958. Now here, in case of financing, you eventually own the car as well, which wasn't the case in leasing. which means you own some value in the car because the car is still up and running. It's just been 3 years, and you can very well sell the car and make money off it, which wasn't possible in case of lease, because in case of lease, you return the car altogether. So what we will estimate here in our returns or in our numbers as well, which is what if after 3 years you sell the car, how much money can you get out of it, and what would be the net return or the net cost that you would have incurred in financing through paying the money you paid and the money you got from selling the car, and what is the net cost for you. So for this, what you will need to do is estimate the value of the car after 3 years. Now, there are multiple websites on the web where you can go and put the make and model and year of the car and its condition and all that, and it will give you a value for that particular car that you can get in the market. Or what you can do is you can put the car on the web on marketplaces where you can put an offer for the car and see what kind of offers you're getting. That way you will be able to estimate what is the value of the car that you will eventually get after 3 years. However, for sake of simplicity, what I've done is I went through a very basic and common way of calculating depreciation on car. It is commonly understood that typically any car would depreciate 20% in year 1 and then 15% every year from there onwards. If you have different numbers, you can use different numbers for it, but for sake of my example, I've used 20% for year 1 and 15% for years after year 1, and after 3 years we will land with a depreciation which would be around 40% since the time you've purchased, which is the value of the car would be 18,394, which would be 40% lower from the purchase price of the car, which is 31,824, which means that after end of 3 years, I can safely sell the car for $18,394. So if I get $18,394 back, that simply means for me the net cost of the car in case of financing is only $15,564, which is $33,958 minus $18,394 gives me $15,564. This is how much the car costed me over the period of 3 years. So in this case, if we simply compare finance versus lease, in lease our cost was $17,896, while in case of financing our cost is $15,564, which is it is better to finance from returns point of view versus lease. However, I missed one thing on lease which I want to call out, that is you do have an option of buying the car from the dealership at a depreciated or residual value of the car, which means that at the end of the lease there is an option to buy that car which you are handing back. However, there would be a set price for that car, and that price would be set when you are leasing the car. The day one when you're leasing the car, the dealer will set a price for you that after 3 years you can buy this car for this particular value. Which is in our case, for this particular example, that value is around $19,413, which is already predetermined by your dealer, and in our example has also been predetermined that at the end of the lease I can buy the car for $19,413, which means if I can get a better price in the market as against $19,413, then I can make a return by purchasing the car from the dealer for $19,413 and selling it for higher in the market. If I do so, I should also add this extra return that I will get on my car in my numbers as well. However, since based on my original math of depreciation, the value of the car that I'm expecting from the market is only $18,394, hence there is no point for me buying the car for $19,413 and then selling it at a lower price, because that will be a cost to me. Which means essentially I have to sell the car for a higher price in order to make a return higher than $19,413. Now, if I'm able to sell the car higher than $19,413, that also means I could have sold the car for a higher price in the financing option as well. So if I try to make the lease numbers better and better by assuming that I can sell it for a higher price outside, then I'll also have to take the price of the car higher in the financing option as well. And in our example, the residual value should be as low as $16,062 for both options to break even between each other. However, since that is not the case, since the residual value is higher in our example, then financing is a better option because we make better returns or pay less cost for the car in financing option as compared to lease option. Now the story doesn't end here, and here comes the best part. In case of financing, now you completely own the car and you don't have to make any further monthly payments. None whatsoever. So you completely own the car and there are no payments which will come further out of your pocket. Except there will be depreciation on the car. The car will continue to lose its value as you use it more and as time passes. However, while the depreciation would be same in percentage terms every year, however in dollar terms, it's lesser and lesser in outer years. So the more you hold the car, the less would be depreciation in dollar terms from 1 year to another. And here, let me show you the math. So for instance, in our example, we assume 20% depreciation in year 1 and then 15% ongoing basis. then in dollar terms, each year the dollar depreciation will be less and less. What this means is that the car loses more value in the early years than in later years. Hence, with each passing year, finance option becomes better and better since you are only paying for depreciation, that also which is reducing, while in case of lease payments, you continue to make same payments or whatever that payment amount would be, that hypothetical payment amount, it will still have a portion of financing or rental cost to it, which is the premium that the dealer is charging because they are leasing the car to you. Now, with this example, the idea was not to convince you that financing is better than cash or lease. The idea was to equip you with the methodology and approach that you should be using when you go to your dealer, when you get all the numbers, as to how you should go about evaluating which option will be cheaper for you. If you understand this approach, you can use any numbers, follow the same approach, and will land a correct answer or the right answer with regards to what will cost you the least in terms of purchasing a car. Now, with all the numbers that I've shared, there are also some non-monetary benefits between lease and financing. For instance, if you want to keep the car for, let's say, a smaller period of time, 1 year, 2 years, or maybe even 3 years, maybe it's better to lease, because financing becomes a better option when you hold the car for longer. As I said, when you hold the car for longer, there comes a point when you completely own the car, you don't have to make any further payment, so there is no interest cost or financing cost anymore, and it is just the depreciation, which is also on reducing basis in dollar terms. So the longer you want to keep the car, the better it is to finance. If you want to keep the car for, let's say, 3 years, 2 years, or even less, then leasing is a better option. Second, leasing is a better option for cars that have higher depreciation, that lose a lot of value in the first years. All cars lose a lot of value in first years, but maybe if it's a luxury car which loses a lot of value and doesn't have a depreciation, for instance, in my example was 20%, maybe it depreciates, let's say 40% in year 1 and 20% in outer years, then maybe lease is a better option because this car is losing its value very fast and you don't want to own such a car which doesn't hold much value after 3 or 4 years, and hence it is better to lease that car. Secondly, if you're someone who is not able to take good care of their car, then it's better not to own the car and let the car be in ownership of the dealership, which is the lease option. So after 3 years, maybe the car is not in such a great condition because you couldn't maintain it well, and hence it's better to give away the car and just pay the rental on the car as against owning the car and then owning the maintenance of the car as well, or any major damage that may happen to the car just because you're not that careful, then you're rather better off leasing the car as against owning the car completely and owning the entire liability and responsibility of maintaining the car. And last point I want to call out, that with lease you also have mileage limitations, which is, in our example, was 12,000 miles. So if you go above 12,000 miles, then you have to pay extra, so you have to remain under 12,000 miles. With financing or with car ownership, you don't have that restriction, you can drive as much as you want. Thank you guys for watching this video. Hopefully after watching this video, you have a better idea as to how you should go about evaluating the 3 options. In case you like this video, I'm sure you will like another video on my channel where I talk about how you can go about achieving 3 times more returns in the stock market. You can check out that video here. Other than that, there is another video where I talk about why it's difficult to become rich. You can check out that video here.